You want to be the swan or you want me to go full swan? I don't know. I don't know. You want to mess up your petty, holding me up in them feet.
YouTube, what's up? It's Joe Commish. Let's break down the big event of the weekend. It's Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. This fight is all the buzz. These guys want all the smoke, and we're gonna break it down from pits to fingertips coming up. Before we get into the logistics and we start breaking this down like sports analysts that we are, can we take a minute and just go over the stretching routine that Jake Paul rolled out at the Open Media Day workout? This man decided to go bareback. My man is shirtless, going bareback on another man's bare feet. I don't know what type. He went full swan. He full extension. Opened up, man. This guy's fully vulnerable. Wearing some real short shorts. See, this is my rule on shorts. I got a rule on shorts. If the shorts show more than 50% of your thigh, it's booty shorts. These is booty shorts, right? Because your booty is closer to the end of the shorts than your knee is, right? So, my opinion, my man Jake Paul came out for the Open Media workout wearing booty shorts, and he went bareback on bare feet, and I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, man.
Baby, did you get to see this? These positions these guys is pulling off. That wasn't that Kama Sutra book you bought at Barnes and Noble. we gonna try it out. You want to be the swan or you want me to go full swan? I don't know. You want to mess up your petty, holding me up in them feet.
All right, so let's get into the breakdown of the fight. And before we get into that, let's understand what Triller Fight Club is doing with these YouTubers and not just YouTubers, these non-boxers, and throwing these kind of exhibition fights that are happening. The reason Triller's doing this is because honestly, it's a genius idea, and they figured this out, and they see this. They see a way and an opportunity to monetize off a few things that boxing has that's very different from other sports. One, it's very easy to become pro. In fact, too easy to become pro. There's a lot of professional fighters that do not belong in the ring, but they do serve a purpose in boxing. All right, so by the time you see a contender or a blue chip prospect on a co-main event, or maybe the third fight on the stack on the fight stack, you notice he has 15, 20 fights already, but yet they always saying this is his first real fight, and likely because 10 of those fights were against dudes that did not belong in the ring. They serve as bait, so there is a purpose for those guys. Unlike the other sports where those guys get weeded out in college, you don't want the crappy guys on your team. In boxing, you need them because you need to feed them to the guys who we know are going to end up being elite. They need to get their experience points, like we say in Pokemon. So given that boxing has such a low threshold to become a professional, and then the other aspect that Triller has realized, and this is kind of like what WWE realized, or WWF, if you're as old as me, is that more than half of the product that you get from a fight is not what happens in the ring. It's your attachment and your involvement to the characters themselves. So much so that in a fight, this is what WWE's motto is. This is what their business plan is. We're going to choreograph a fake fight, and you're going to know it. But because you're so attached to the characters that we've built and that we've manifested through these wrestlers, you're going to want to see the fight anyway, because more than half the battle is done out the ring, in the build-up, in the characters. You're drawn in, you're bought in. That's why Conor McGregor's huge. You get the Floyd Mayweathers, the John Jones, the Ronda Rousey, these huge pay-per-view stars, Canelo Alvarez, for example. And Triller, I don't know, understands this. And Triller's really, they're kind of like TikTok. They're an app, a social media app, but they realize that if they can take advantage of these high-profile figures like YouTubers or retired fighters or probably celebrities one day, you may see LeBron James fight A-Rod one day, because the money is behind it. You can monetize off of two people fighting. Everyone wants to see two people fighting. Everyone wants to see a fight, and if these two guys have real animosity or big names and have a fan base on their own, you put them in the ring and you can make a lot of money. And that's what Triller, they realize. I don't need to bring up a boxer and create him into a boxing superstar to monetize off of him. In fact, I just need a guy to have a following already, a fan base that wants to see him get in a fight. That's exactly what's happening. Jake Paul is a YouTube monster, a YouTube typhoon. This guy has I don't know how many millions and millions of subscribers on YouTube, and he has a following that will follow him whatever he's doing, whatever he's going to do, in whatever endeavor. This guy could be picking his nose on YouTube, and he's going to get millions of views. So they realize that the most important aspect of the fight, these guys have already done it. They've achieved it in whatever other business they're doing, whether it be YouTube or Nate Robinson in basketball, or Tyson and in his post boxing life has gained a lot of notoriety, and they're able to bring them back based on narratives and characters and following, and you're able to get them in a boxing ring because of the low threshold boxing has for them to fight each other. And who doesn't love a fight? Do you remember in school? Let's take you back. Let's go back to high school. In school, doesn't matter who was fighting, boy, girl, everyone crowded because everyone loves a fight. Primarily, we are innately, instinctively drawn to fights. That's what it is. Tell your girl right now to watch boxing. She won't watch it. But I bet back in high school, if there was a brawl in the lunchroom, she was in that crowd. It is because of that. She is then attached or some way connected to the two people fighting, and she is interested enough to find out the outcome. And that's what Triller's doing. It's a genius game plan. I don't hate it. I'm a boxing fan. I enjoy it. They saw that they had an ability an opportunity to capitalize on that situation, and they've done it brilliantly. And they're putting real boxers on the undercard. You're gonna have Regis Prograis fighting on the undercard, and then you're gonna and then one of their other events that they're throwing, you're gonna have Teofimo Lopez fighting George Kambosos. So these are real boxing fights that they're kind of mixing in, because no one really watches the fourth fight on a fight card or the fifth fight unless you're a really deep fan. But if instead of putting just filler fights or fights that just to fill up the card that no one's really gonna watch, how about instead of putting actual boxes that no one knows, we'll put like an exhibition fight of two people that you may want to see, and then we'll get to the boxing fight, and then we'll get to, maybe a Jake Paul, Logan Paul. So let's break down the fight. Essentially, what is Jake Paul? Jake Paul or Ben Askren, none of these guys are boxers, but they're boxing on that night. So let's look at them as boxers. What are they as boxers? And as boxers, honestly, none of these guys are even top 100. If you take the top 100 of any sanctioning body rankings, or let's say like an independent ranking like BoxRec, that just they have an algorithm in which fights you accumulate points through fights, and the math adds up, and they list rankings of over 100. I don't think they're top 100 boxers, maybe not even top 150. But Jake Paul has been training for the last 3 years, and according to him, pretty seriously. I do believe him in this. I believe that when he says that he's been training seriously for the last 3 years, that he has been dedicated and devoting himself completely, submerging himself in the boxing life, whatever, from dieting to weight cut to technique to boxing to running to putting in the time and the hours and the training and the sparring, right? Because any sport is just accumulating experience and time that you do it for. So, okay, so let's say 3 years for Jake Paul. Let's say Jake Paul is a very natural, quick learner of boxing. And let's say because his 3 years are much different than a normal person who starts in 3 years, because of this, he can spend on high-end resources, high-end coaches, high-end facilities, high-end equipment, high-end gear, high-end learning, right? He can surround himself by top sparring partners that can really help and optimize those 3 years as much as possible. So you get a natural, and he has the most resources to make the most out of those 3 years. Let's say it really equates, let's say double. So let's say Jake Paul really has acquired the knowledge of a 6-year boxer. Still doesn't put him in the elite hemisphere or anywhere close to the elite hemisphere of actual boxers who've been doing this 20, 25, 30 years before they become elite. And so you're getting a 6-year boxer. You're getting a guy who's been boxing for 6 years, and he's been boxing among sparring partners at a very high level. So that's what Jake Paul is. I think he's learned enough about boxing to be considered, he knows enough about boxing that he is a serious boxer at this point. And you have to take it for what it is. And I'm not saying he's elite. Like I said, I don't even think he would be ranked top 100. But maybe like a top 150, with 6 years under his belt. It could be possible. Ben Askren, on the other hand, as a boxer, aside from these last couple of months that he maybe has been focusing on boxing solely, He's very not talented. He's not skilled in that area at all. I mean, Ben Askren wasn't even a striker in his own sport of MMA. Like, he was a very low-level striker, like below 50 percentile. The minimal attention that he's put into his striking over the years in MMA, now he's going to transition that over to boxing, which does not translate the same. Due to distance, due to setting up, due to setups, due to leverage, due to traps, due to jabs, everything is different. Where you set your feet, where you put your feet, your positioning, it's all different. Just because of the fact that there is no takedowns. So, well, you know, just the positioning and how you stand and where you stand and how far you stand to set up your offense or defense is much different. So you're transitioning this over the last 3 months. And look, to be fair, we did see a prolific striker in MMA transition over to boxing. We saw Conor try to do it against Floyd Mayweather. Now, Floyd Mayweather is a totally different beast, one of the best to ever do it. But we saw it. We saw what that looks like from a gifted striker in the MMA, more of a boxing style striker from MMA in Conor McGregor, and when he transitioned over to boxing. And it didn't look right. If you're a real boxing fan and you saw the way Conor fought, maybe if you're a casual fan or MMA fan, you're kind of impressed at points. But if you, a real boxing fan, you saw it was awkward, it was weird, and it just didn't look fluent or efficient. These are totally different muscles that you're using that you've been telling your body for the last 20 years of MMA that you don't need those muscles, because we don't need to throw that way or stand this far or throw this much torque or hip power into it, because you don't have to defend a takedown. So look, we saw how Conor did it, and Conor was a much better striker than Ben Askren. When it comes to boxing or the ability or his ability to strike in boxing, I don't see him acquiring the knowledge that Jake Paul has acquired at this point. What Ben does have going for him is that he's much bigger than Nate Robinson. He is a fighter. And what that means is that you have accustomed, and yes, there is an adjustment that happens or an adaptation that happens when you're a fighter, as taking hits to the face or to the head. Your body, when it gets hit in the head, it does not know whether it's getting hit with an 8-ounce glove or a 4-ounce glove, or for a boxer or an MMA fighter or a Muay Thai fighter or a kickboxer. It doesn't know whether you got hit with a frying pan or a punch or a pillow. All it knows is applied force to your head. And there is an adaptation to that I think does happen amongst all combat fighters. And this is what Ben Askren has. He has been hit in the head multiple times. He knows what it's like to get punched in the face. This is what he does for a living. Now, it may not be from a boxer. It may not come from stylistically, maybe not be focalized to the head the way boxing matches focalize a lot of punches to the head. But he knows what that feels like because he's done it for such a long time. So, look, I'm gonna give my prediction. So I'm gonna give my prediction, and I'm gonna say it. I think Jake Paul wins. It kind of hurts as a boxing fan, but I think Jake Paul wins by unanimous decision, though. I don't think his power is real. I don't think that knockout we saw against Nate Robinson is going to happen against a Ben Askren. But I think he wins by unanimous decision just because he knows how to box a little bit better. But I don't think the fight is going to be entertaining. I actually think it's going to be an ugly, uneventful fight. These guys are going to these guys are going to find themselves in situations where situational boxing, where they're not used to or not naturally know how to do this both offensively and defensively. They're not gonna know when Ben Askren grabs them. Jake is not gonna know the nuances of fighting inside or getting him off him, or it's gonna be ugly. I've seen when two low-level boxers find themselves in situations that they're not accustomed to in a boxing ring. And trust me, for these two guys, there's a lot of situations in the boxing ring that they're not accustomed to because they just don't have the years in it. So I'm sorry to break the news. I know everyone's hype over it, and it's all the buzz and everyone's looking up. Shit, I'm looking it up. I want to see it because, like I said, big part of the fight is the narrative and the characters and the build-up and the hype before the fight. And they're doing a great job between the two guys and Triller. They're doing a great job in promoting the fight. If I were an MMA fan, I'd be a little skeptical at this point, man. You have a lot to lose in this fight, MMA fans. Me being one, I am an MMA fan. I'm more of a boxing fan, but I am an MMA fan. I tune into UFC and Bellator, and I watch all these fights. And it just sucks because you're getting drawn out of your terrain, out of your your comfort zone, which is MMA, and you're getting beat in a boxing ring. Now it's the second time where we get to see a high-profile MMA fighter transition or try to transition over into boxing and lose. And yeah, the first one was against a high-level boxer. So it wasn't, you had that opt-out. You had that cop-out in saying, hey, man, look, he fought Floyd. And he did, maybe he did better than what I thought he would against Floyd Mayweather. But this time, you're fighting a YouTuber, really. He's at this point, Jake Paul is more YouTuber than boxer. And, that could change. He can flip the script eventually. But at this point, Jake Paul is more YouTuber than boxer. So you have to call him a YouTuber or YouTube influencer. And Ben Askren is fighting a YouTube influencer. And if he loses this fight, it just looks bad for MMA. It doesn't look bad for boxing because there's no boxer in the ring. There's no real boxer in the ring. So I don't think boxing takes a loss in this one. In fact, it may be a win because there may be a lot of residual fans that may not be watching boxing otherwise if it wasn't for a Jake Paul or Ben Askren coming in. Because trust me, all of Jake Paul's fans will be tuning in. And all of MMA, whether you're a Ben Askren fan or not, you will be tuning in because a representative of your community, of your tribe, is representing you in the boxing ring, in a fight, pretty much. So look, you don't want to lose. I think he is going to lose. And it's just going to look bad for MMA. But the most to win here, the person who comes out to win, if Jake Paul wins, is Jake Paul. Jake Paul is going to be massive, more massive than what he already is. He's going to be a household name. I guarantee it. The clout that he will gain of beating an actual fighter will be insane. But that segues me to my next question. So what's next? Let's say Jake Paul wins. What's next for Jake Paul? Because I think it's pretty obvious. If Ben Askren wins, then he takes his win, he goes home, he shuts up the YouTuber, he goes back to YouTubing, and Ben Askren goes back to podcasting and teaching MMA because he's retired, or wrestling because he's retired. But for Jake Paul, if he wins, man, this is the thing with boxing. It's always tournament style, even if no one's next on the ladder. It's always tournament style. You've just claimed and risen your stock in both what you are in terms of name value and what you are in terms of purse, in terms of how much I get paid for beating your ass. And I do think Jake Paul is susceptible to inflation of the cabeza. I think Jake Paul is susceptible to inflation of the cabeza. I think his head is going to get big. And I think eventually you can't run away or find loopholes or sidestep fighting a real striker, whether that be a real striker from MMA or a real boxer. And I think that's when he'll meet his day. He'll meet his doom. But that's it, man. Let me just drop some names. Maybe he fights Floyd Mayweather after Floyd Mayweather, annihilates Logan Paul. Or maybe he fights a striker like Israel Adesanya. Or maybe he becomes such a big name and so much money he's able to generate from gate sales and pay-per-view sales that Triller eventually puts up a check in front of Canelo that he cannot turn down. And then Canelo, not only will he be monetized, probably close to what he got monetized for Floyd or a Cotto fight or somebody big like that, but he gets to shut up the guy that is, according to Canelo, disrespectful for the sport. And that'd be great to watch while it lasts. And that fight, if Jake Paul allows himself to get involved in something like that, that fight would be horrible for Jake Paul, but it'll be fun. The build-up will be fun. And like I said, half the fight happens outside the ring, and that part at least would be guaranteed entertainment. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time. What's up, YouTube? Thank you for tuning in to the end. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about it. Keep coming back, keep tuning in so I can keep pumping out content. Help me help you. Come on now.